Well, saving money is very important for your future, which is why we are talking Investing 101 in today's Dollars and Cents segment. We are joined once again by Ryan Kilgore, Rhode Island Market Director for JPMorgan Chase. Welcome back.
Thank you, Michaela. Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Investing is so big. We have to start investing, as early as we can, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But what are some ways that we can start to invest?
Yeah, and thanks for asking. So when you think about investing, it's really important that we just stop and take a step back and really evaluate our own financial situation. And really starting by understanding how much money are we making, how much money are we saving each month, and how much money really with our expenses going out can we afford to put away. And so when we think about investing, there's a couple common misnomers that we all think of, and one of those is we have to have a ton of money to do it. And it's really not having a ton of money, it's how much money can we really afford to put away to invest. And the second one is we really think that we have to be market timers and know when's the right time to get in, and we don't. We just know that we have to have significant time in the market, and so we like to say it's not timing of the market, but it's really the time in the market that really helps us when we think about what things we can do to get started and things that kind of scare us from really getting the go-ahead.
Yeah, and we're going to dive a little deeper into some of those points that you mentioned. First of all, when is a good time to invest? Like you said, it doesn't have to be a large sum of money. It can just be if you recognize that you have some that can be put elsewhere, right?
Absolutely. And so when we all think about when do we do it, it's really like when we get our first job. Ultimately, we're thinking about when can we stop working, right? Which is retirement. And so when we think about that, the easiest way for us to do that is to really just start with our 401k. It's very simple, and it works very similar to Social Security when we think about it. It comes right out of our paycheck every month. It goes into a secret place that we'll all see one day when we're ready to retire. And the 401k operates the same way, only with the little extra benefit as most companies offer what's called a match, and we like to call that as free money. So if your company pays you to put money away for yourselves, we encourage everyone to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, would you say that's a good rule of thumb when it comes to contributions like that? If there is some sort of match, take advantage of it?
Absolutely. I mean, no one's going to pay us to save our own money, so I would say definitely take advantage.
Yeah, for sure. I know I've done that in the past. Diversification is big too. What is diversification?
So we like to say the very simple analogy of don't keep all your eggs in one basket, but another way to think about it is really a way for you to mitigate risk. And when most people think about risk in investments, it's kind of a scary term, and we don't like to really think of it that way. We really like to think of it, how fast do you want your money to really help you accomplish your goals, and how do we want to mitigate that risk? And so when you think of diversification, think of it as a way to really mitigate that risk, and how much risk do we need to take to reach our goals.
And a lot of people think that the market is risky.
Absolutely.
Why is that?
Well, and I think part of that is because people really get advice from their friends and other relatives to determine what things they should do with their investments.
Sure.
And so instead of really consulting a professional and really understanding, what's going to be best for them and how they should reach their goals, it's really important that, every decision you make with your investments is personal to you and not necessarily what's great for other people.
Right, and quickly before we let you go, because like you said, everyone's in a different boat. What works for some might not work for others, so seeking advice from a financial advisor is the way to go.
Absolutely. Some of our most brilliant minds in the world definitely do the same. And so again, if it's not something that you do every day and you're not, I would say, super versed in it, I would definitely encourage you to seek the help of a professional who will give you that advice that speaks directly to you and what's important to you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again, Ryan. All very helpful advice. If you want to see more Dollars and Cents segments, you can go to Rhodeshow.com.